October the 6th, watering hole. Thank you all for coming today. As I've mentioned before, the watering hole shouldn't be a lecture, shouldn't be something boring that you go do after class. It should be a place for discussion, new ideas should come out of this, collaborations, and so just keep that in mind. Don't take it like another lecture or informative session. Just you challenge the speakers as well. But we have a limited time, 2 hours, so I'll be moving the speakers up. So to start every watering hole, we start with our name. We say who we are very briefly. So I'm a student at UCLA, something like that, and I'm going to ask a question as well that you have to answer. The question this time is, tell us about a place that gives you peace. It could be in the shower, it could be in the I don't know, outdoors. Just briefly tell us what place brings you peace. The weekends, something like that. So my name is Alejandro Garcia, like I mentioned, computer science and finance at UTD. I help organize a bunch of projects here and the watering holes as well. And my peaceful place is, I was born here in Texas, but I grew up in Mexico. And when I came here in South Border, what I saw differently is that the city that I grew up in, you couldn't see the stars at all because it's light pollution. And the city that I moved into, there was a park that all the trees covered, the stars around, the lights around, so you could see the stars really well. So I would go there at nights, just look at the stars.
My name is Clement Lee. I'm an A-Tech major, just like most of the people here. My place of peace, recently I've been going to my apartment's gym, and you know, every evening when I get home, I just lift some 15 pounds. Nothing too like strenuous, but also like nothing too like, I do a lot of them, so you know, I feel like I've done a lot. I also found multiple clubs to go to. I've been seeing a counselor. I've been meeting a lot of new people, and I feel like the university as a whole has been somewhat comforting for me.
Sweet, thank you. Eric?
My name is Eric. I'm an artist, and I don't attend here. And my place of peace, I would have to say, Low-Lit Bakery.
It's an actual bakery?
No, none that I've been to. But any.
A Low-Lit Bakery.
Yeah, a Low-Lit Bakery.
Nice. You should recommend the song at the end. If you've been to some of those places.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Misal. I'm pursuing my master's in finance at the business school right outside ATEC, and I'm the financial coordinator for the ArtSciLab. And my peaceful place actually depends on the situation to which from I'm finding peace from. But in general, if I'd say I like mountains because I wasn't born there, but yes, I've went there trekking for quite a multiple times in my home country, not over here. Like let's see.
Nice.
I'm Andrew. I'm a tech student here. An A-Tech student here at UT Dallas. I guess for me, the thing that I really gives me peace lately, a place that gives me peace lately, is being in areas where there is no congestion, and I'm not talking like air pollution or whatever, but like places that aren't busy. So like yesterday, I sat down in one of the fields in this campus for 30 minutes. That was good. And sometimes if I can't find a place, I'll just go to my car, park somewhere where I know it's not going to be busy, and just sit there, because this whole school thing can get so busy that I need an area to decompress. So yeah.
I'm Aiden Acuna. I'm a student here, political science, so not A-Tech, but you know, I still come here. I was a previous speaker at the watering hole, which is something I'm proud of, but the place that I like to go to, I guess my peace is, there's a railroad bridge around here that I'm pretty sure it's not active, but I go there and I just kind of sit at night, and there aren't stars here because, you know, light pollution, but it's nice to see the clouds and the moon, and that's where it brings me peace.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm Evan Acuna, lab manager. And the place that gives me peace, probably my bed. After I work long hours, I hear a lot of work, I hear a lot of music, I hear a lot of sound, and I just go there, and it's silent, it's plush, it's quiet. It's not riveting, it's not cold as night, but I like it.
My name is Brandon Wagner. I work here on campus in risk and safety. I'm a neuroscience student, and I guess I'm a bit of a peace nomad. I go to where the peace is. I bring the peace to myself. I don't really have a specific place. I've always just kind of tried to figure out how to be peaceful where I find myself.
That's good.
My name is Sabri Atman. I am PhD candidate in History Department at Ackerman Center. And I do my dissertation about genocide during the First World War. At the place of peace is my memory about where I was born in a small village, long time ago, and never been again there.
Armenia?
Assyria.
Syria.
Assyria, not Syria.
Assyria.
I am Subhas Gupta. I am pursuing my MFA in creative practice. This is my third year. And the place that gives me peace is the temple. I go to temple every Sunday and sometimes holidays. And yeah, that's the place that I find peace in.
Hi, my name's Brendan. I'm an A-Tech major. I'm also the communications producer here in the lab. And the place that I find peace is at a bookstore.
I'm Andrew. I'm a part of this community, and the place that, one of the places that gives me peace is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Hi guys, I'm Vic. I'm an A-Tech MFA from 5 years ago. My peaceful place is probably abstract. It's wherever I find mystery. Mystery really gives me a lot of peace in my life right now. And however mystery comes to me, that gives me peace.
Hi, my name is Roman. I'm a computer science student here. I'm doing AI research and looking into trying to form a community at ETD around effective altruism, which is going to be what my presentation is about today. The place that gives me peace is kind of just in my mind when I go for a run. That's what I do when I get stressed.
Sweet. All right, let's get into the speakers.
All right.
Peters will be the first one. Carl Smith.
All right.
You want to take a seat?
It's like, oh yeah. My brain went to class presentation.
Stand up, Andrew.
I mean,
It's fine.
but yeah, actually I think I will stand up just because my brain, okay. As a medium, animation exists to entertain, explore ideas, and influence the audience, whether it's an emotional through line or a message. It can also be a vehicle for showing technological and artistic advancements in the entertainment industry for the future of entertainment. Future Faith is a project that I believe has the potential of not only inspiring audiences with its optimistic message, but also stand out from the limits of contemporary entertainment. Future Faith asks the question of what if angels and demons existed in a sci-fi world? The story is about a futuristic world where angels of the Abrahamic biblical narrative are armored cybernetic heroes helping people overcome their issues. The animated project would focus on a young newbie angel named Grace who's trying to help a damaged young boy named Malachi overcome some of his internal struggles. But when Malachi makes a mysterious yet regretful choice, he attracts an antagonistic force, villains called the Fallen, led by a man named the Adversary. Now it's up to Grace to help and guide Malachi to help him not self-destruct. So the single story would be told in 1-minute episode releases, some being serialized to progress the story, others to explore the characters and world in a comedic fashion. There would also be some musical elements to frame the story in an entertaining way. The character here is Malachi, the focal protagonist of the story, a young middle schooler who made a bad mistake that he just beats himself over. At his best, he's competitive, he's comedic, he's quick-witted. At his worst, he's snide, condescending, and greedy. With the conflict of grace and the adversary, Malachi needs to choose between improving as a person or worsening as a person. The deuteragonist, or secondary protagonist, is Grace. Grace is a novice at this whole angel thing. She's friendly, she's outgoing, and joyful. A good friend to others and a brave defender for those in need. But even she has limits, as she can only help Malachi if Malachi wants to help. The adversary and the fallen are a group of rogue angels who have two goals on earth: cause humanity to fall and end up on the riches of the world. They're led by the adversary, a charming villain who's the most famous man in the city. He may come off as charismatic, he may have all the things humans want, but he only wants to help Malachi for his own selfish gain. So to talk more about the visuals, in recent years, animated films like the Spider-Verse duology, Puss in Boots 2, Arcane, and the recent Ninja Turtles film have taken influence from 2D animated techniques. However, I haven't seen the opposite. That's why I'd like Future Faith to be a project exploring hybrid animation. Now, hybrid animation is usually used to bring 3D characters, 3D objects into live action settings, but it can also be used to bring different mediums of animation together, like 3D and 2D. The animation being hybrid is to embrace a futuristic imagery that was popular in a lot of early 2000s media, colorful, bright, and vibrant, as well as geometric. A somewhat limited color palette would also be involved in order to have all the assets and all the characters contrast from one another. It wouldn't go too far off of the CMYK color palette, but it wouldn't also over depend. It would just be a happy medium of the two. So,
what does that phrase mean?
It means cyan.
I know what cyan, magenta, yellow, black means, but when you say a CMYK color palette, what does that mean? Could you repeat the phrase that you used? Because I was trying to understand what you were trying to express. Okay. And you said that it's going to use the CMYK color palette, and there was something that followed up after that. What were you talking about?
So I was talking about how, I'll have to say this real quick, how all the colors are going to be either complementing or contrasting it. It wouldn't be every single color in like...
I say that to say, what is the CMYK color palette most associated with?
Printing.
Thank you. So tell me how, it doesn't necessarily, it describes a process for mixing colors physically. How does that talk about a relationship between colors?
So if
I were to say a triadic color relationship, if I were to say a split complementary color relationship, if I were to say a complementary color relationship, so those all describe color relationships. It's like me saying that I'm using an RGB color palette. Yeah. That almost that means everything and nothing at the same time. So I'm trying to get to what it is that you're really trying to say.
The blue, magenta, yellow, and black would be the core colors. Everything would be complementing that, or being monochromatic. It wouldn't be, let's say, the overlap. So it's, I'll have to think more about that, just because I'm struggling with the words. But
you're going to use a lot of cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's pure form.
So then orange would be the or blue would be the complement of yellow. Orange would be the complement of cyan, and magenta would reside somewhere in a split complementary relationship with yellow and green.
Somewhat. I have to think about that for real because it's hard for me to explain. I'll definitely have to think about that.
We'll table it.
All right, but the influences and intent. For this project, I've become very intrigued by the rise of independent animation on platforms like YouTube. Shows like Has-Been Hotel, Big Top Burger, and Sublo and Tangy Mustard have presented the fact that you don't necessarily need to wait for an executive or to get the green light from a production studio to get your idea off the ground. Each project holds a very unique vision that doesn't feel weighed down by things like marketing or demographics. But at the same time, the lack of limitations can also be a double-edged sword. So even though short-form content has become prominent in recent years on places like TikTok, there's barely an age limit in comparison to TV or movies or even video games, meaning younger audiences are more prone to seeing things outside of their age limit. That's one of the many motives behind Future Faith, to share content that's appropriate to a wider range. Future Faith isn't some sort of tongue-in-cheek babysitter thing like CoComelon, nor is it trying to compete with other independent projects. It's a project with a positive and emotional through line, but with sensibilities that can branch off to a wider audience. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. But any questions? I'll definitely have to keep the CMYK thing in mind.
No, it's not so much that, it's color relationship.
Color relationship.
Every, like, your Future Faith series, what's the historic precedent that it's rooted in?
Y2K Futurism, which is, well, sorry, I'm misusing that word. So when you're talking about the historical thing,
every animation series that's ever been created has had a historic antecedent or precedent that it either amplifies or subverts.
Okay.
What is the one that you are using in your series, and why is it really called Future Faith?
Why is it really called Future Faith, and why exactly? What's like the thing I'm taking influence from?
Yeah. What's it rooted in? For example, what comes to mind immediately, right? I'm an old guy, right?
Yeah.
So I'll think of the Boondocks as the most recent example. Okay, and that is a animation system in its written form that was rooted in sort of like the Doonesbury comic books, but it took a distinctly African-American approach to its expression. As it later developed in its animated series, it became a social critique of popular culture and historic culture in many ways. We look at and I can point out to any number of episodes. Some of them were critiques of sort of like, or incorporated the genre of like kung fu movies into them. So I'm asking for your series, what is the thing that you are referencing historically, subverting and amplifying in this work?
So I guess one of the main focal points of my inspirations would be a series from a Nickelodeon called My Life as a Teenage Robot, a series about a character named Jenny Wakeman, who's a robot who wants to live among the humans. One of the secondary characters of My Life as a Teenage Robot is named Carl. Carl was the younger kid character. The character of Jenny and Carl have, in my project, have become very reorganized in a lot of ways, and so that's the thing I'm taking a lot of heavy influence by, in some aspects, but not through aesthetics. Even though the character of Grace is a robotic-like character, many of her design aesthetics come closer to like Apple computers, while and stuff like some action figures from the past, I'm gonna say 15 years, when a character like Jenny Wakeman, XJ9, the robot character from My Life as a Teenage Robot, takes influence from World War II weaponry and 1950s futurism ideas for robots in like pop culture. So I guess My Life as a Teenage Robot is one of the core elements. There's other aspects too. In its visuals, I would probably say another influence in terms of visuals would be Ben 10. Even though that show is a big franchise now that has many spin-off projects, I took some inspiration from its fourth iteration called Omniverse, which was more of a fusion of some 1950s, 60s, 70s aesthetics, but with a lot more of a cartoonish, a lot more of a cartoonish proportion in the designs. So hopefully I answered that question, but you asked what does future faith mean? I'm still finding that out. At first it was I liked the alliteration, but in the writing process I've been looking into the themes of like, okay, what does faith mean in like ancient Hebrew culture compared to Western culture now? And I've been having to think about that a lot lately. So yeah.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
To kind of play off of Andrew Scott's question that he had, have you watched Astro Boy at all?
Yeah, I actually read some Osamu Tezuka books for research reasons.
I mean, Astro Boy and My Life as a Teenage Robot can almost go hand in hand if you really think about it.
Okay.
I have a very different comment. Have you heard of the group called Fluxus? F-L-U-X-U-S?
Yeah.
They came up with the idea of intramedia. And as I was listening to the end of your presentation, how would you combine this medium with others to create? And that sort of builds on this idea that almost all art forms are built on prior ones. And so, okay, just look up Fluxus. I'm in touch with one of the founding artists in the 1960s, Ken Friedman. He works in China now. And it's sort of interesting how, that group didn't survive, so nobody's heard of them. No, but they
I understand.
No, but they broke the boundaries and opened up the box for other people.
Right.
Yeah. And
yeah, because it was the original anti-art movement.
Yeah.
And there's Yoko Ono is prominent Fluxus, as is Dan Johnson.
Charlotte Moorman.
And
we used to do our writing on balloons.
And there's the Fluxus Museum that you carry around in a box. Okay, Don Johnson did letter art, but it was a movement that truly tried to upset the traditional structures that existed within the art world.
And building on different media to do that.
Yeah, and so it's like one of the most important. I agree with Roger. It's like one of the most important and wonderful artistic movements of the 20th century that everybody seems to forget.
Well, and they never built an institution.
Right. So that goes to say that if you want to exist in history, sometimes you have to build an institution so that there's something
Just change names every 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to praise your idea, because I've not heard of such using a faith-based medium, but in the future. That's something new, and I always faith-based media. I've never seen put too much effort into it. I don't know if it's I think it's low budget, or I don't know. I've never seen a lot of high quality faith-based media.
So what does that phrase mean?
What?
What does that phrase mean to you?
Faith-based media?
From your context and as you're expressing it, what does that mean? Because it can mean a lot of things, right? And so I'm just want to know what from your point of view, when you say the word faith-based media and you're talking to them about that, what do you mean?
I mean VeggieTales, style stuff, people who do live reenactions of like historical like Abrahamic religion sort of stuff. Maybe it's just my experience of not seeing a lot of them, but like the ones I have seen weren't great. And I do appreciate that you try to push the medium in this sort of direction. And the characters, based on what you've said, I do relate a lot to Malachi and Grace and Adby. I'm not sure if it was because you were being a bit ambiguous or you were trying to summarize, but they all have like properties that like I can relate to, you know?
Thank you.
All right, any more questions before we move to the next speaker? Question?
Oh, yeah,
Good at hunting.
Maybe you already covered this, but did you? Who made the visuals for the presentation?
Me. So yeah, I did that. I pretty much. This is the second time I've done this presentation. I had done this over a year ago for another class, and I redid it in the last couple of weeks, building up to this. Adobe After Effects, Clip Studio Paint, some Photoshop stuff, but yeah, I did it.
Looks awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm really impressed with the art.
With an ecosystem of the art and technology program, where do you find yourself right now? In terms of, is this your first year? Firstly, and what principal area are you working?
So this is my third year at UT Dallas. This is my final semester. So I find myself, my degree plan is generalist, but I concentrate more on visual development and some pre-production stuff. So concept art. I've taken the 3D classes, stuff like that. But I really enjoyed like visual story with and 2D animation lab. Todd Fector and Scott McCumber, really awesome guys.
Cool.
Last thoughts?
I was just gonna ask, since this is like your second time presenting this, has there been like progression in how this has gone along?
So in terms of, I'll have to say this, in terms of writing, yes, because I've written a lot of episodes for this in between, and because of that, my perspective has changed. Visuals, the basis has been there, but a lot of things have been modified. And also because this is a different setting, I had to rearrange my presentation script a lot because the time limit here is compared to my first time. My first time was longer. So yeah.
Andrew, are you actually writing out scripts for your visual story episodes?
Yes, this is a project that would be on short form content websites, applications like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. So because of that, each episode is a minute length, so that means a page and a half, sometimes 2 pages, depending on where the story's going. Right now, so far, I've gotten about 15 episodes down, and I have some other things that I wish I could talk about, but building off of that. But, yeah.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right.
Andrew? All right, so we got the next speaker now. Herman?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck. Is there like a, do I have like a clicker?
You can just point at me and I'll just change it.
Can I, is it possible I could stand over there and change it myself?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
just,
okay.
we'll just have to.
I'm changing slides pretty quickly, so it might be easier.
So we just have to have the cameras pointing that way.
Oh, okay.
We could just, we'll just change that. That you here.
Are you just Elevator Joe Coward on YouTube? He does a podcast. He does like little short animations, and they're meant to be like, they're 2D and they look like a little bit morbid, but they also are incredibly wholesome. And he balances those two properties really well. Like it's these creepily drawn characters, but they're experiencing these wonderful non-gross moments with like their family and stuff, and it's just like There's some pretty scary stuff he makes.
I'll have to look at it.
You know that thing where it's Scooby? And no, Shaggy up at the camera going, the grass is like a instinct to delicate Steve. You ever seen that?
I might have.
Might have some sparkling.
Yeah,
Is he the one who did It's a Prank time?
It's a prank.
How you doing? All right, let's start.
Sorry.
Hi, my name is Roman. I'm a computer science student here today at UTD, and I'm here to tell you about a social movement and community that I'm involved in that you guys might be interested in hearing about called Effective Altruism. So Effective Altruism is a social movement and a community that tries to think really, really hard about having a positive impact on the world and then putting it into practice. And before I go into more detail about what exactly this looks like, I'm going to give you like a concrete, I think this is a mistake a lot of people do. I'm just going to give you like a concrete example of what the community looks like. So Effective Altruism, there are conferences about it. Here's me at one of those conferences learning about what it's like to work at an operations role in a nonprofit. It has like an online forum where people talk. There's like this is a bit of an old diagram and also kind of ugly, but there are this is kind of a map of different organizations within the space. So like there are a lot of effective altruist aligned nonprofits and companies and charities. And effective altruists work on a wide breadth of global problems, such as animal factory farming, pandemics, nuclear war, risks from advanced AI systems. And yeah, so the central shtick of effective altruism is that it's really, really difficult to figure out how to do good in the world. And some ways of doing good are just vastly more effective than others. And so the idea is to think really, really hard and prioritize correctly. And so you might think, okay, doing good and thinking critically, that's a big deal, right? Like what's so special about this specific movement, right? They're like researchers and political protesters think about this, right? And I think there's like three things that kind of sets it apart as an intellectual community. The first is a focus on measurement and quantification. So one example is comes from a study where researchers looked at like trying to actually quantify how cost-effective different charities were that worked in poor countries across the globe to see like how much does it cost to save one life by donating to this charity. And when they actually try to put a number to this question, right, that most people don't think of, they found that like the charities actually varied drastically in terms of how effective they were, right? Like the most effective charity, it follows this power law distribution. The most effective charity was like hundreds of times more effective than most of them. And these are the kind of insights that you can only get by like trying to think quantitatively when it makes sense. The second thing that sets effective altruism apart is like a really strong focus on having true beliefs. And the idea is that a lot of people get caught up in ideological wars or groupthink, and they don't give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, think of a lot of political protesters. They're not really gonna like take the other side seriously, right? This is an excerpt from a book I read called The Scout Mindset, and in this book, Julia Galef argues that most people have a soldier mindset when it comes to their beliefs. They think of reasoning like combat and arguments and debates as combat, and when you're wrong, that's like something you should take personally. And she contrasts this and advocates for the scout mindset, where you see beliefs just as like, you know, trying to form a good, accurate view of the world. And trying to be intellectually honest. So that's like a big part of effective altruism. And the third thing is cause neutrality. So most people, when they work on some problem in the world, usually it relates to something they know personally. Or they kind of just stumble into it, right? Maybe they start working on climate change because that's what all their classmates are talking about. Maybe they work on homelessness because it's something that they like can see when they walk around the city day to day. But the space of possible problems to work on is actually really, really big. And it's not obvious from first principles that the first problem that you stumble into, that you become passionate about, is actually the most important problem to work on, right? In fact, for reasons I'll get into later, like the probability that you stumble across some problem might be inversely correlated to how important it is. And so effective altruists try to be cause neutral. That is, their first primary goal is to try to do good in the world, and then from that they try to figure out what problem would be like best to work on, and instead of caring about the problem itself. And so this is a very important point. So last part of my presentation, I'm just going to talk about how effective altruists choose which problems to work on. And there are three, what's it called? There are three attributes of like an important problem, at least according to this framework. So the first question you should ask about something to work on is it actually a big problem? If your kitchen is on fire, you shouldn't really worry about whether you're out of coriander, right? You should focus on the most important things. And this isn't as like obvious as you might think, right? So this is a little chart that sort of compares the causes of death that most news organizations cover versus like the number of people that actually die in the US. And as you can see, like terrorism kills so few people in the US that you literally can't even see it. It's not even a single pixel on this graph, less than 0.01%. But that's drastically contrasted to how much coverage it actually gets. For example, in the New York Times, 5.6%. And like, I bet if you ask the average American how many people die of terrorism, they would probably vastly overestimate it. And likewise, people probably care a lot more about terrorism than maybe they should, compared to other things that kill people. And this actually has a big impact in how things are actually prioritized. Wow. So, yeah, over the last 10 years, only $8 billion per year has been spent on preventing pandemics in general. But yeah, almost $300 billion on counterterrorism. But when we look at how many people actually died in those 10 years, it kind of flips. You know, literally just in the last few years, 21 million people died of COVID, and only 500,000 people died from terrorism in like 50 years, right? And so I don't think it's this idea of comparing the importance of different causes has real world impact, and like real people die in the world because we're not thinking critically about what problems to focus on. All of that money that could have gone towards preventing pandemics actually went towards something which is way less important, and real people died because of it. And this is why I care so much about this. And so the second problem to think of is like, is it a neglected problem, right? This is a rough framework for how to think about how to have an impact in the world. When you're first starting out, like 10 people working on a problem at the very left of the charts, 10 people putting effort into it, probably isn't going to do that much. And then as you ramp up the number of people working on the problem, you get economies of scale, right? People can specialize, you get access to more resources. And so the impact a group can have working on a problem goes up exponentially. But then after a lot of people are working on a problem, it actually peters off a bit, right? Like there's diminishing returns. And the lowest hanging fruit of how to attack some problem like gradually disappears. And so there's like this sweet spot of if you want to make additional impact on the margin, if you want to join some problem, you kind of want to like work on the ones that are more neglected. And so the problem you're most likely to hear about, this is what I mentioned earlier, like homelessness or climate change or whatever, is like probably not the problem you could work on where you'd have the most impact, right? Because a lot of people are already working on those problems. So you kind of have to search out something which is more neglected. And then the last question asks, is the problem solvable, or is the intervention you're applying actually effective? So there was this program called Scared Straight. Has anyone ever heard of this? Yeah. They made some documentaries about it. It was implemented in social programs. The idea was take some prisoners, or not prisoners, like juvenile delinquents, I think, put them in a classroom, have a prisoner yell at them and scare them, and maybe say, you know, don't commit crime, like, or else you'll end up like me, and scare them straight. And like this very intuitively like a lot of people, this was very intuitive that it actually solves this problem of juvenile delinquency, right? But then some researchers did some studies on these social programs that like popped up in various cities that are inspired by this scared straight. And they found that like it actually very slightly increased the chance that the people that go through the program would commit a crime later. And so this program was actually like negatively effective. But unless you actually do the research, you might not, and like hundreds of other social programs or hundreds of other things that people work on are just like this, because no one actually thinks critically about how to do good. So like that's the last point. You want to find problems that are actually solvable, and you want to find interventions that actually like solve them. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to invite one of our guests to speak up. He is an expert on genocide. You know who I'm talking about. You want to just explain a little bit what your research is? You.
On my research?
Yeah.
Question to my friend.
Well, no.
Okay.
I'd like you to pose the problem of genocide as you understand it in the country that you are studying.
I think critically thinking is very important on
what genocide are you going to?
Yeah, I am focusing on the Assyrian genocide of 1915 in the Ottoman Empire.
Anybody heard of it?
And here,
I've heard of the Armenian genocide.
here most probably everybody speak, or not everybody, many people they speak about the Armenian genocide.
Yes.
But there is no enough critical thinking there because there were other Christian minorities. For example, the Assyrians, 2/3 of the nation they lost during the First World War. Why human rights are less important? Some people are less important than other people? I don't think so. Then why only Armenian genocide, which is very important to be acknowledged, recognized, condemn the perpetrators, and also one of the things because this genocide is crime against humanity, and unfortunately humanity has not learned enough from the past. This is the reason genocide, crimes against humanity, repeated itself often. And 2 weeks ago, Azerbaijan, a country, very powerful country, together with Turkey, they attacked Nagorno-Karabakh, where 120,000 Armenians used to live for 3,000 years. But now, last week, 80% of the population, they left their country, and now they are in Armenia, in poor Armenia. But where are these human rights organizations? Where is United States that you care about Ukraine? Is it true that they care about Ukraine, or something else is behind that? Why then? Why this 120,000 important? They are not important people. So to be critical about things that we read here, I think is very important. Thank you very much for your.
Yeah, of course. And this specific idea is actually like a big thing in the effective altruism movement. The idea that we should equally prioritize people's lives. So a lot of people there's some stats, I don't have them up right now, about the amount of charitable money that gets donated from people in the United States. And the vast majority of money that gets donated to like helping out poor people stays within the US. So like you donate money to an organization which is helping poor people in the United States instead of some other country. And this is actually kind of like counterintuitive because the United States dollar goes way farther in other countries. And the United States is overall a pretty wealthy country, and so there are like a lot more people in way more dire straits in, for example, northern India and sub-Saharan Africa. And so like a donation of $1 actually goes way farther in some of those areas than it does donating back to the United States. And in effective altruism, there's this concept of moral circle expansion, where you have like the people that you care about morally, and you know, yourself is almost always in your own moral circle, and then your family, and then maybe people in your local community, and then people in your like country. But maybe that like how much you care about them morally goes down every time for a lot of people. And so one of the most important values in effective altruism is expanding your moral circle. So like thinking, okay, actually there's no reason why someone in Nigeria matters less than someone in Ohio. So if I can save 3 times as many people from dying of some disease in Nigeria than someone in Ohio, then I should donate my money there.
Or both.
Yeah.
I like that.
Or both? Yeah, I mean, you only have so much money to donate to charities. So actually on the margin, like, you should just donate all your money to the one that saves the most people. But yeah, like, ideally, if we could save everyone, we should.
Ron?
So I'm afraid I'm gonna have to be pretty bleak here.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do not like the effective altruism movement
Tell
for
me
2
why.
reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it exists in 2 spaces. One, the positive space that you're putting out, and 2, the space of people who have such an excessive level of resources that they are causing a lot of the problems you're trying to solve and explaining to you how they will fix them. Because, right. So that to me, like, it's not a mistake that a lot of really rich people love this idea of effective altruism, right? And I'm suspicious about that deeply. The second thing, and that's a huge topic that there's not enough time for, but the second thing is a dollar spent somewhere else is not a dollar spent well, right? So when you think of, let's spend $1 to do the mosquito nets, that was an old classic, and what you actually found is a lot of people, when you gave them a mosquito net, they didn't actually use it on their children, they used it on their livestock, because that's what makes them money. And right? And so you found that a lot of this money was actually just going to nothing. It was getting blown on nothing, and people thought something was being done about the issue, when in fact, this idea that the money is going to something good probably actually was working its way backwards to convince people, well, somebody's doing something about it, right? So, you know, we don't do enough effort to understand what the people need, where they are. It's all about money. And I don't think it's all about money. Right, and it's not necessarily a deep criticism of what you're saying, because I think you're coming at it from the very positive perspective of it. I just think it's been co-opted.
Could you do me a favor? Could you just go back to your first slide where you showed everyone in the movement in a room?
Sure. Actually, first I want to talk about a couple of things.
Yeah.
But we can continue this.
Can we have? I just want to see what.
I want to see the demographic.
I want to see what that room looked like, and then you can talk over that.
Yeah. What a coincidence, right?
What an orange hair.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Actually, before other questions, I kind of want to.
No.
So. Yeah, on the second point about like on the specific problem of global health and development, which is one of the most common like issues that people care about in EA, but definitely not the only one. Like the specific problem of like, okay, how do we actually make sure when we donate money, like when we donate money to a different country, like how do we make sure it actually helps people? And another question is like, how do you make it how do you make that country not dependent on those donations? How do you not like cripple the local economy? How do you not go in pretending like you know everything about like Nigerian culture and you don't actually like help the people's problems? That's the thing that like everyone that's the whole point of the EA movement, right? In this specific space is like, how do you make sure it actually does well? And so like a lot of EA organizations, for example, that work in global health and development, they will do follow-ups. They will talk to local organizations to make sure that they aren't just like, you know, spending on livestock or using the mosquito nets to like catch fish or whatever. Like that's kind of the, or like if that's what would deliver them the most value, they let them do that. You know, like that's kind of the whole point, right? So I guess it is a criticism of like global health and development in general, but yeah. And then on your first point, God, I wish more rich people were into effective altruism. Like, it's way less popular with rich people than some people might think. There's only like 2 main donors in the effective altruism movement. One is this guy named Dustin Makosovitz. He's like ex-CEO of some company, I forgot what it was. And like, if more rich people cared about donating their money effectively, that would actually be great. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And the vast majority of billionaires do not try to like donate their money to the most effective causes ever. They just hoard it.
Yeah, that's my point, is that they pay lip service to this,
Mhm.
right? I've heard a lot of lip service towards, well, we got to come together. I'll give you a great example. It was Oprah Winfrey in Hawaii when she came together and said, I'm going to get $10 million to donate to these people. And I know this isn't directly to effective altruism, but you know what she meant was, I'm going to start a fundraiser that's going to drive $10 million,
Oh, yeah.
and I'll be at the head of that.
Mhm.
And you have this person who owns land, who is obscenely rich, and she's coming out and telling you how we have to come together.
Mhm.
Okay, well, you know, and you mentioned like Nigeria or Niger, for example. You know, they have a lot of what they need there, right? It's they're being exploited, right? For example, Niger has all the oil they could ever need. They import oil. Why? Because their economy is in shambles. They can't get it up off the ground, and everybody around them is making sure that situation continues. It's not all about money. It's not all about money. It's more complicated than that. And the people who have a lot of money, I feel like really like the idea that they are able to fix it. I am a benevolent force, even though I feel like they are driving it in a lot of ways. Like I said, it's hard because I think they co-opted it. I'm not even really saying this is, I don't know, rich person's coming in the room and shaking your hand and being like, you did a good job, thanks. You know, so.
You had a question earlier.
Oh, well, in relation to that, exactly what you guys were talking about, an instance where it can be more harmful than helpful is volunteer trips for high school students.
Yeah.
There's a thing where, and there's just, I can't give you a proper source right now, but there are a lot of reports of people that, you know, say their kid is in need of direction, and so their parent, typically a rich parent, will pay for them to go on this volunteer trip thinking it'll, you know, just give them direction. Well, like you said, a lot of these places, people have been taking care of their own communities for a very long time. And when you have a bunch of teenagers that show up like, hey, let's build your house for you, people that don't know how to have never seen your neighborhood before, that isn't just ineffective at points, that's insulting. Because they'll go around giving clothes to people like, you know, this is my house right here, and I have like a dresser in there, right, with clothes. So you're so right, it needs to be done very effectively, and you have to consider who's providing that experience, why they're doing it, and with somebody who has constant disposable income, I would argue that a lot of the money they pay is kind of just to ease their own conscience. It costs nothing, basically, to do something that will make you feel good about yourself. And a lot of times that can result in people meddling where they shouldn't.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's kind of that's like one of the hallmarks of like this idea that like what we think of sometimes as doing good doesn't always actually do good, you know? And that's like,
it depends where, obviously.
Yeah.
There are a lot of places where that ends up being an issue.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I mean, obviously the picture here speaks for itself. You know, it's easy to come up with the solutions and think you're doing the solution whenever you're kind of the reason there's even problems, you know? So like, if you're not really suffering, it's easy to say, I can fix it, whenever you don't really suffer. And I don't really want to go too far into that because that doesn't, that makes the point entirely. But I was going to go off of your point, kind of off of genocide and that sort of thing of like, well, isn't every life worth the same? And in that regard, it's kind of difficult because we, as people, obviously just don't think like that. We just aren't altruistic. It's like, obviously we care for other people. We're not going to be like, oh, you know, these people off like in a different continent, this is my priority, this is where I'm going to spend all my money. And it isn't even necessarily like we care about the things in our own area though, because, you know, around the same time in the early 20th century, my people, which are Tejanos, which most people aren't even really aware of anymore because we don't get too much historical, you know, knowledge passed around in school or anything, we're a case of where, you know, you really could argue that it was an attempted genocide because during an investigation they said up to 3,000 or 5,000 people were lynched or killed. But we don't even think about that. They just got 2 historical markers and they're very recent and no one really cares. And it's like, well, you know, if every life is equal.
And that was on this campus.
not this campus, South Texas, but Texas legislators inevitably and legislatures said that the Texas Rangers were a big perpetrator and that sort of thing just got off. They didn't get any punishment. So it's like, we have these horrible things, and kind of coming from an altruistic perspective of like historical context, it's like, well, there's a lot of things that go unsaid or not recognized, and we pick things to really focus on, but it isn't necessarily based off local things. And being a political science student, I try to I was writing down notes and stuff, just like thinking of like, well, how do we have solutions to issues that really matter? And historical context is extremely important, I feel, and also things being local, but issues being blown out of proportion, that's basically all politics are nowadays. I mean, we have this so-called culture war, but I mean, what is it? It's like drag stuff going on in schools aside from like really a thing and banning books that need to be banned, but we ignore how the actual culture of our country, especially and specifically Texas, how the demographics have changed completely. The Hispanic population is now the majority. That's something that's like cultural and that has like a really big issue, like influence. Something like a third of the population speaks Spanish, but we still only teach kids English in schools. We're ignoring issues that are really important, and to think about altruistically, it should just be, well, there's a lot of things we should be prioritizing, not the nonsense that we do. So.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I really like the talk on the scout mentality versus the soldier one. I'll have to think about that. But when you were talking about like the anecdote of like, okay, compared Nigeria compared to Ohio, I really had to think about that, because it's like, anecdotally, I returned from Nigeria from a family wedding, because my family's from Nigeria, and it was fun, but I had some mixed feelings on that, just because it's like poverty there varies from person to person. Some people live in neighborhoods similar to America. Some people live in the streets, and they tell you don't go out at night, and so it really does vary. But then
so it's like Dallas.
North Dallas.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, but it's like with like, okay, maybe there's poverty in Ohio too, and it's like it's like, I understand when it's like there are other countries which struggle, but I personally believe that like what Roger was talking about, why not both? And because it's like you have the neighbor, like your neighboring area, something close, and then you have someone far away. It doesn't mean that you ignore the person far away. It just means that the compare and contrast thing is like, I'm not sure about the compare and contrast mentality. I'm more thinking of, okay, how do we work both ways? That's what I'm thinking. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm just thinking.
If I may say one thing, and it's kind of interesting because I always find like irony. I like finding irony and absurdity in these spaces, and I almost want to bring it home. And I think about the phrase sort of like what was it, effective altruism? Yeah. And almost immediately when you said that, the analogy that came to mind here in our context is sort of like critical media studies. And I almost would like to apply sort of like the same critique that we've applied to the subject that you presented today, to how critical media studies is practiced within this school. I'll leave it at that.
I just want to say, even though it's really critical, your presentation was good.
Yes.
And it did well.
No, it sparked a good conversation.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I kind of was obviously a little...
Next time, use a fake photo with mixed colors. AI will generate...
Oh my gosh.
No, I mean, to make the point, if you look at the picture and draw the wrong conclusion.
Well, I mean, is it the wrong analogy?
I have a personal philosophical question for you.
Sure.
And I'm not looking for an answer rhetorically.
I love those questions.
Do you think the world can be saved?
Where can be saved?
Can the world be saved?
I think so generally. If you look at any statistic that correlates to like how well society's going, like number of infant deaths before 5, or percentage of people in extreme poverty, or like a variety of other statistics, like it's always been going up since the Industrial Revolution.
So
Like,
you would quantify.
I don't like that.
You would quantify
finish.
saving the world through those kind of statistics.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Obviously, those specific statistics are not like everything that there has to do with like the world being better, right? Like, for example, people are becoming generally more lonely over time because of technology. There's increased political polarization. You have a lot of like social things like racism and sexism, all this stuff, right? But like, humanity is changing really quickly, and things might go very well. We might move towards a future where there's just like an incredible amount of abundance due to the automation of labor and this sort of thing. And like, this is kind of the key thing that I think about, is how to transition to a society, how to transition to a utopia. I think it's pretty likely we might be able to make that happen.
Okay, cool.
If everyone's on the same page collectively around the world and nobody's unhappy with what's happening.
Well,
Yeah.
talk, we'll do that.
Everyone is listening.
All right. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you, man. Next speaker, Eric, presenting the Doors of Illusion. Okay, let's go.
All right, y'all. My name's Eric, and I'm currently working with Dr. Roger Molina on the Doors of Delusion, an exhibit which will explore the ways in which the mind can be deceived, disoriented, and challenged. This started from a seed project by Clement Lee, initially called Doors of Illusion, and has since transitioned into a multisensory interpersonal idea. So, going through this process, I'm really excited to explore the evocative qualities of smell, the benefits to an interpersonal multisensory experience in contrast to a group experience at an exhibit. So through this development, I have remained connected to a particular prompt. Without the base use of human senses, how would a being of abstract nonverbal nature and someone of concrete verbal mindset bridge the gap in their communication process? So when walking into this exhibit, you will meet a faceless being that cannot see, hear, or speak. Walking in, you will see that between you and them is a tall stone monolith. The being is frozen like a statue, similar to like Pompeii, like complete stone. And it's going to have one side on it. It's going to have its hand on one side of it. And when you walk up, you're going to be naturally drawn to the major icon in the middle of the room. And so when you touch it, vibrations will go from the separate monoliths in the room, alerting this creature, and you realize that you are going to be forced to bridge this communication gap without words. This being is one of pure instinct and connection. I like to treat it kind of like a genie, fictionally. It is frozen, dormant, and then if somebody comes and wakes it up, it is, instead of having an agenda, it is based purely on survival and connection. It wants to speak to you and can't, which frustrates it. And so the way that you two end up communicating is you're looking through a mechanism that you've never seen before to use vibrations to speak to a being that doesn't communicate traditionally. You are both going to have to meet in the middle and create an abstract conversation from nothing. Now, the way that that is played out is we have set up a series of, mechanisms that make it to where this being can speak to you, tell you exactly what it's feeling, but only through breathing images, smells, and I guess in this case, the vibrations would come out to kind of, how do I put this? They'd come in intervals in a way that you have to work out. So you go from post to post, touching it, and it sends a vibration back and forth, almost like a pulse, like a heartbeat. And it pretty much wants to tell you, I live in darkness, and whenever I wake up, I have such a brief moment to connect. And the frustration I have comes from I have such a limited amount of time and so much I want to say and so little I can say. And so you realize it doesn't communicate traditionally, so neither can you. So, I meant to collect my thoughts. Okay. The frustrating and brutal irony is that it can receive traditional input. It cannot receive traditional input, but it can show you everything it feels in a medium that it cannot see. You're doing the same using a vibrational language that you don't understand, and you both are having to exercise a sense of empathy that you might not have been able to before. You've never really had to improvise, at least get a little scattered here. Would you be willing to switch it again? Yeah, so when you walk in, there's so many ways it can talk to you without actually using language. So with smell, we have made it to where we set up a sequence to show the context of what it's thinking. And since it can't use words, we're using breathing imagery as well. I've set up a practical reel at home to where it's like a little crank, and we're going to film it traditionally, like close up, and then we're going to have an animation partner of ours make it breathe, make it
Blink.
Maybe so.
I think this only works if there's no visual imagery.
You think so?
Yeah, because otherwise, it's too reliant on the visual imagery to make the mental connections that would be more profound if the visual imagery was absent. I think the driving force in this experience should be smell.
Not tactile?
Not tactile, should just be smell.
So how do you feel about the vibrations with the monoliths?
Huh? That's
tactile.
No, go with smell. It's more interesting that way. Once you make it visual in any way, you sort of like destroy the purpose of the whole idea.
So the conflict that we ended up with was if we tried to make a sequence of smell, it's difficult to make one absent and then replace it. So the way that we had to start designing it,
use sensors that deliver the smells.
Okay. Because what we were thinking is the way to make it organic would. Oh, sorry.
You use sensors throughout the room, different parts of the room, that triggers different smells to be emitted. And so it works at a very subconscious level with the viewer. And it'd be even better if it were just dark with minimal lighting, so that you'd almost have to, everything that you form, all the imagery that you form would have to be psychological.
Okay, I like that a lot. Just finding, see, yeah, because the principle in mind is how do you create an abstract communication gap where there are no words, nothing else. So what kind of sense can you use to get there? And the delusion of it
and you could probably use sound. You could probably get away a little bit with sound, but even that too much would put you back into the visual realm.
I think you're completely right about that.
You're supposed to disagree with me.
or agree.
We gotta come in here and I like it better when you just disagree.
Please.
So,
I disagree.
Thank you.
are you feeling what I mean when I say aphasia?
Aphasia.
So it's like Broca's and Wernicke's aphasia. They affect parts of your brain. If you get a lesion in parts of your brain that comprehend speech, you can have problems with both comprehension and production of speech. So you're describing to me somebody who has an aphasia when you're talking about this figure you come into. I can't speak to you. Well, this is a real lived experience.
I have to silence this thing.
This is a real lived experience.
Or when you experience visual phenomena as smell.
That's synesthesia.
Yeah, that's what was on my mind initially, which was, and I couldn't use the word synesthesia because that's a technical thing. I didn't want to, I don't know if the word is for it, but I wanted to more so just say, find a way to say what they mean without saying what they mean.
So the next thing is, have you ever heard of a pidgin language or Creole languages?
No, I haven't.
So a pidgin language, you get somewhere like Hawaii, second time I'm bringing that up, but you get somewhere like Hawaii where they had a lot of different cultures, Asian cultures come in, and these have completely different phonetic origins, right? So if you get somebody who's from a Germanic language and an Indo-European, an Indian language, they have no relation in how their language is set up. So they'll start to make a language that makes sense to them. And then within 2 generations, a new language is formed, the Creole language. Yeah, so this is very common. And now there's something that's really interesting is that even though all languages have roots that they kind of come from that are different, they're different groups, when a Creole language is formed, it always has the same structure as other Creole languages. Humans have a generic, normal idea of what a language might be.
Esperanto.
Esperanto is, it's an attempt at that. And so you see that people have, there's almost like a default setting when we're all trying to communicate together to figure out how to talk to each other. There's like a default setting somewhere in our brain.
But what I find most interesting about the idea is taking sight and sound out of the equation and creating a phenomenological experience that's based on some other senses.
It's an exercise in empathy more than anything.
Right,
and
right.
and the overall. Oh, oops, I'm sorry.
No, I want to have James speak. I've said enough.
The overall.
Please. Sorry. I was gonna disagree with you and kind of go with your side because I think about because I've like read a bunch of these of like the like the writings of conquistadors and the Americas like during the first sort of like conquest of this like really like great divide of not really understanding each other, and because there's this huge gap in language, culture, everything. It's a new world, But there's like this one, I can't remember the name of the conquistador, I actually think he was a good priest, but he has this like realization of they're just as smart as us, they're probably smarter than us, and we don't understand them, we'll never understand them. Because like even the Kibus, right, I don't know if they're called that, but like the knotted form of like writing or text, that we don't know how it works now, we still don't know. And there's this great divide, and there's this frustration, there's priests just burning things because they don't know what it means. And I think that does well because it has to have some level of similarity, because if we are introduced to something that we don't understand, and there's just nothing that we understand, like we just go into a room with smell, I'm just gonna think, okay, well,
it's easy to go back to whatever. It's easy to not want to adapt to that because if it's too unfamiliar, sometimes it's too distant.
It's too distant.
Yeah,
like,
and so
I went to a room that smelled like a lot of things. Going. Just be like, what does it smell like? Like, why is it like that? You know?
And when it comes to the illusion that we're expressing, I'm really interested in the illusion of control. Not a physical, but an ideological delusion of I have the right idea in every situation I walk into, and of course you think you do because you're biased. You're you, so you think your way of seeing it is the. It's tough to adapt in the moment if you're not prepared for it, and being shown a form of language that you've never seen before, being forced to communicate that way, a lot of people, I'd say, revert back whenever they see something that seems like it would be such a step that it wouldn't be relatable for them anymore.
Yeah. Eric,
sir,
why the choice of the word delusion versus illusion?
So that is a question for Roger and Clement. Because
Keep showing the slides.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
I think you're going to come to
Well, firstly, the original project that was going to be called was called Beware of Replicants, and it was supposed to follow like the AI deepfake things. And then Roger Molina said it was kind of boring, so I changed it to AI Illusions, Deception of Perception, and then he kind of changed it to Doors of Deception, and then it got changed again to Doors of Delusion.
See, what that tells me is that you don't know how to fight for your ideas.
Oh yeah, it kind of became Roger's idea, and I didn't want to disrespect him by saying.
God, that's so horrible. Let me say this, artist in the room. You have to die on the altar of your artistic intent.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
Thank you.
If you can't fight for your artistic intent, why are you here?
I don't know.
You're in graduate school. You got nothing to lose. What happens when you get out into the world and you got to eat tonight?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you can't stand up for your ideas and say that this is the way I want to do it, I respect where you're coming from, but this is how I want to do it. This is what I want to say. When are you going to be uncompromising?
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know.
I get what you mean.
But that's basically it. And I was like,
and so he stomped all the purity out of your idea.
Yeah.
And now you got, instead of having like concentrated pulp, you've got orange drink.
Orange drink. Oh, but I get what you mean.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
Professor Scott's got to stand up for
Eric,
us.
is the one I've been hearing that this is going to be an experiential art installation? Would that be a description of it or not?
Experimental, yeah.
Experimental.
Yeah, no, definitely.
No, experiential.
Experiential. Oh, yes.
Experiential.
So one thing that I really want to specify is the interpersonalness of it. So, that'd be a word. I'm used to going to any museum I go to. There's always people surrounding. It's a group experience, which for some people can be great because it's a communal, indulgence. It's collective. But
is it also individual at the same time?
So in this case, I want to put more emphasis on the individual side of it.
Fair
So because I love going to museums and seeing it with a group of people that are also in awe, but I've had some of the most important experiences, stuff that sticks with me for a while, when it's been a one-on-one, where I felt like I was alone with that piece.
It's the James Turrell experience.
You feel like it's in its own way. It's a little bit, it's a little bit of a lie, but you feel like it's speaking to you. You feel like it's speaking right to you in that moment, and whether you believe it or not, that is kind of the feeling that I would get when I'd see it. I'd be like, I know it's not really speaking to me, but I feel a personal connection with this right now that I wouldn't have otherwise if I had been in a big public space. So I want to try that out and see where that goes.
Two experiences that are really important, two artists to consider based on this conversation. And one, as I said, is, and they're both artists whose work require you to spend time with them in contemplation of the work, because the more you engage it, the more the work reveals itself. And James Turrell is one artist who works with light. And there's sort of like the initial experience that you have when you encounter the room. And sometimes it's very subtle, where you walk into the room and it's just dark, but when your eyes relax, your retinas relax, there's a second thing that's revealed that you wouldn't see until you were there for 15 or 20 minutes, and your eyes adjusted, your retinas adjusted to the darkness, and it revealed this other thing. And another painter that operates in this way is like Mark Rothko, who, if you just looked at his paintings, it would just be this square on top of another square. But when you take the time to sit there and contemplate it and look at it for a while, you'll watch these colors just swimming and interacting with one another. But what I find most interesting about the whole premise of this delusion is a delusion that I can't get off of this delusion that's based on our encounter, an olfactory delusion.
I like the idea of it being an idea, because
Yeah.
you can push out an image, but the ideas stick with you. In my opinion, I feel like, because if it challenged me and it made me think differently, I'm going to go home and I'm going to be thinking about that later. I'm going to be thinking that really made me consider a different perspective, and that's why I love these interactive things, because I like the idea of the experience following me around and having actually maybe even taught me a lesson, maybe shared a moral with me, shared a perspective that I didn't get before. And I love going to see, I've never really messed with this before, so I really just want to see where it goes.
No, keep going.
Oh yeah, if you could show the next one. So we've been talking about apophenia a bit, which is the tendency to perceive a connection or meaningful pattern between unrelated or random things. Now this can go from something very small to something big. Small scale, it could be something pretty, not unhealthy, like seeing a shape in a cloud. But then it can go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which includes conspiracy theories and things like that. So there is a point where it goes from healthy amounts of wonder to paranoia, and it's definitely important to know where that line is.
Is that the same as genius? A synonym? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I've seen genius defined as making meaningful connections.
Oh no, apophenia, no. It's just the concept of...
Another great word.
It's the objective concept of it. It's not like a
medical term.
And for the next, would you mind? So this is something that I saw a few years ago, and it really stuck with me. It's a tree of world leaders, basically. And so there's a lot of dispute on who made this, and also who it represents.
Not an African in the bunch.
How many people do you guys think you see on there?
So far,
About 5? Maybe take a moment to count. Like, see.
7.
2.
Okay. Yeah.
9,
5, 6,
8, 9,
No, 8, 10.
8, yeah, 9, yeah.
Yeah, that's the bad.
Someone said.
That's a half.
8, 9, there's
Oh,
5,
Definitely not.
6.
I'll add a couple more, make 11.
So there are 10. There are 10 of these, and this was written by an anonymous, or drawn by an anonymous person at Harper's Publishing in the
It's
1880s.
not an
Now-
African in the bunch.
So, including this, there's a lot of speculation on who's on this tree. Now, Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi.
1880?
Yes.
Really? How did they say Thatcher?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, somebody totally just wrote that today. I take back everything I just said on that. But there's a lot of talk that some people were saying it's Indira Gandhi on there.
I can see it though.
I haven't spent a lot of time trying to figure out who it is, but I was really interested in this because it kept me glued to my phone, and it made me want to look for spaces in
There's a black tree.
What are you talking about?
We, that's obvious, but come on. We got some fruit too.
Point to Indira Gandhi.
I don't even know which. I don't know. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, that's gotta be.
No, India
That's Mahatma
Would you mind
Gandhi.
doing it one more time? Yeah, Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so yeah, there are.
There's so many I missed.
You don't have an opinion.
Take out Margaret Thatcher. That was a total just.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Just totally forget about that. But yeah,
Invalid tree.
so it's
How many toes do you see?
No Frederick Douglass, no Mary
That's
McCarthy.
see, it's just me.
I want to know if I'm smelling the tree though.
Holy crap. Well, I mean, that's a messed up foot. It doesn't tell us.
I don't know if you had never seen a face before. Would you recognize? Would it would just look like a normal tree? That's what I think. If I had never seen a face before, I don't know.
If I've never
I
seen
can't.
If I had never seen a face before.
If I'd never seen a face before.
A baby can recognize it's, someone in his
So-
family.
Yeah,
And
they're
so, if you take a child who has cataracts at
Right.
birth, and in the first year and a half of their life, they don't see faces, you take the cataract out,
Yeah.
their vision is fine. They will never recognize faces properly ever again. There's a developmental phase where you actually understand what a face is.
Is that the same thing as imposter syndrome, or is that a separate situation? Okay.
No. This is it's due to things like amblyopia. It's due to vision disorders. So if you're born with cataracts, there is a formative stage where your brain programs in faces.
So it's the lack of resolution and visual information
It's always
is
going to be not quite right.
retarding some kind of development in the brain. That's the theory, correct?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's a theory.
There's a phase where your brain
It's definitely medically observed.
Okay,
Upside down.
Learning that.
Sure.
Turn it upside down.
Interesting.
Okay, Alejandro, can you turn the picture upside down?
Well, after the talk, we're moving.
That's good. That's good.
Well, I just like the idea of people.
No, but that fits into what he's talking
People
about.
filling in the spaces, basically.
When you're upside down, you don't recognize things.
You see the outlines of something, but maybe not the whole thing.
That's like that famous Sigmund Freud,
I might have seen.
where there's the image of Sigmund Freud and the woman on top of his head.
I don't know if I remember. Wait, no, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about.
How did you pick monoliths?
So it's more so I was looking for a device. So it was like how it would feel a little bit uncoordinated in my opinion if you had nothing to. It's kind of like you're walking around. It feels better if you have something to hold on to. Sometimes if you're doing something with your hands, it feels a little better. You feel a little bit less like you're floating around. And I liked the idea of having some kind of physical anchor so that the person would feel, I don't know, not like they're coasting around the room waiting for something to happen. It feels like they are taking part in the act itself and they are initiating a lot of it. So that was the reason for putting an item to give it a function, a device.
How many people are familiar with the artist Art Crumb?
Oh yeah, Robert
Yes.
Crumb, comic guy.
Crumb is Fritz. Yeah, Fritz. Yeah.
Fritz the
My
cat.
dad showed me that at a young age.
That's Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, that's Bakshi. Oh, okay.
It doesn't really.
My dad showed me that at a really young age.
Please,
A little younger than he should have.
He was just 11 years old. He was not a bald old
That's so
guy.
weird. I looked up then that's where my confusion was as well. Okay.
Even Indira Gandhi wasn't even born.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you for straightening that out.
I need somebody to straighten that out.
Because I was sitting here doing the mental math on that and it was going.
It was confusing to me earlier as well, because they said, if you look up the image, it's like, they say it was drawn by an unknown artist at Harper's Publishing in the 1880s. And
Maybe
then,
1980, but not.
1980s would make more sense. 1880s.
You have to make sense of it.
Yeah. And Make-A-Wishness, maybe.
But it's all a delusion anyway, so.
Someone could have seen the future.
Well,
maybe so.
Okay, keep going.
Future fame.
Well, I guess to sum this up, we want to be able to bridge a communication gap and exercise empathy in a way that does not involve words or context or traditional senses. And we're going to be exploring the illusion of control, the evocative impact of smells, and how they have very nostalgic properties that can make it feel a lot more personalized for people. The hope is that using these senses will create a more immersive, empathic, and lasting experience. I would like to think it's something that would stick around.
Yeah, it's interesting that you actually possibly think that if you strip sight and sound, that it might make a richer empathetic experience.
Yeah,
That's interesting to me. I would have a counter take on that.
What would it be? Because I think everyone in this room, right, could think of a smell. Just think of a smell from your past, right? Mm-hmm. And if you thought about it long enough, it could almost bring you to tears. Or it could evoke an emotion that would make you happy, an emotion that would make you feel repulsed, an emotion that, you know, that would hit every emotional center. Just from thinking about it, not even smelling it. Now, God forbid you should walk down the hallway and actually smell it. It can take you to a specific place, a specific time, and a specific emotion that's associated with your life experience in some way.
Cigarettes.
Yeah, like cigarettes. You know, like the smell of a cigarette. It's like, man, I wish I could do that, but I can't. You know,
is it necessary? It may evoke memories. Are those necessarily going to evoke empathy from the memories?
Because it puts you in a place. It puts you in a place.
I guess it's easy.
Is that going to? Is that going to map to empathy? Have a memory of a place in space?
So if the being that you're talking to is having a human experience similar to what you have, then it creates that connection. Now the whole thing is, the exercise is it doesn't have any normal ways to show you that it's feeling the same things. So that's where
every time I smell peanut butter cookies, I think of my father.
Okay. How do you connect this work to effective altruism?
Connected to effective altruism.
Is the speaker still here?
God forbid I should smell a yeast roll.
You talked about empathy, so there must be
I guess I jokingly said earlier, you know, every single person was on the same page, but I guess if there was a way for it to apply to effective altruism, it would be just collective, very little by little, I don't know, promoting empathy, just promoting it little by little, because it's not a huge thing that would make a huge impact all at once. It would be just promoting a singular idea that would hopefully spread a bit, and it would make you think. And I would say it would be one of those things that if it did affect something on a larger scale, it would start very small. It would start on a very minuscule level from person to person, and hopefully, like the game is similar to, I don't know, any trend, maybe it would catch on. But I'm more serious. Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, when Scott said no visuals, like, but that's still an idea in your inventory. Do you think you'll have different versions of like monoliths or so that like can express itself with, like, one can express itself with smell, but one can express itself with visions, or?
Well, I think what's going to happen is, because I'm thinking about this a bit differently now, considering the idea of, you know, singling it down to smell. First of all, that makes the project a lot easier. Well, that's the thing I want to keep. If we take away visuals, I would 100% want to keep the vibrations. And I think if it were down to smells and vibrations, I think it's, after this conversation, I want to take some time to start considering other, like, how that would be executed. So the answer to that, I guess, would not be a solid one right now.
And is this going, you said it's going to be a personal experience. Are you going to find a way to prevent people from going in two at a time or like as a group?
So it's not like there's some rule, but we more so just promote the idea of this is best experienced one-on-one. I remember the most important artistic moment, like when I just saw something that was so awe-inspiring. Went to Sweden and I saw a giant quilt the size of this room, and it was done. It was sewn. That was alone. I was in there alone, and if I had been there with a group of people, it wouldn't have been the same. That's how I see it.
I get it. I'll have to say it quick, but
Last one.
Okay, have you thought about like so with sound, like with the vibration thing, you're trying to like evoke. So this was how I interpreted your presentation. You're trying to evoke an emotional response through like a lack of full all the senses. You were taking out some of the senses.
Yeah.
It reminded me, and I don't want to go too far away because I don't think that this is your intent, but it reminded me of one of those horror experiences that I've heard of where they put everyone into a room that's dark and they just set up sounds very close to them that evokes like, oh, did someone just cut my hair when I didn't want
I have not heard of that. I have to look that up. Okay.
Like stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, awesome.
All right. Last thoughts? Just anything? Message?
When
When is it happening?
Okay,
we don't know
anybody
yet.
who hasn't spoken up, please speak up.
Cool.
We're good.
All right, well, thank you guys so much.
We're going to begin with the last speaker of the night.
Sorry, I have to leave, yeah.
Hey, by the way, could you want to present at some point?
Oh, really, somebody is waiting for me.
Yeah, but next
yeah,
Friday.
yeah. It's
For
Friday,
Friday.
I'm not here. I'm in Colorado, but
Okay, nice
definitely I will do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a gender problem in this group.
Well, that's just the way actually we don't. That's just the way it rolled out. The door's open.
Yeah.
Well,
The door is literally
And I'm sure if you have something to say, you'll say it loudly, right? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have the last speaker, Subhash. Thank you for joining us.
So, I'll introduce myself. I'm Subhash Gupta. I'm doing my MFA in creative practice, and this is my final year. So I'm doing my thesis this year. And the project that I'm going to show you is my thesis project. So I've written a short bio and a description of my project, so I'm going to read it, if that's okay.
No, actually, that's not okay. You're like far enough along that you should be able to roll it off the dome.
No, hold on a second. No, we allow any method to, there's no best method.
I like that. But you should be able to roll it off the dome, though.
Yeah. I'll talk about it.
How many times as an MFA student, right, have you presented your work?
This work?
No, your work, or whatever work. This work
Yes.
too, this work too.
No, this is, I have not presented.
This is like a thesis project that you're going to talk about, right? And you can't like, in 5 minutes.
This is not a classroom.
No, but I'm not, exactly. Exactly, because he's adopting the form of a classroom in order to present his idea. Would you do the same thing at a bar?
Let him, yeah,
No,
no.
Peter, you can just sit at the
Let him,
top.
okay.
Let him cook.
Let him speak.
Okay. So, a little bit about myself.
Thank you for correcting me, brother. Sorry.
So, I create works to showcase and preserve the culture from my country, Nepal. Nepal has a rich cultural heritage, however, it is slowly eroding away due to encroaching westernization. An unchecked import of Western ideologies and practices, and our own neglect of values, responsibilities, and ownership have sharply declined interest in customs and visibly changed how festivals are observed. I use illustration, animation, installation, and performance art to inform my audiences of the rich historical, cultural, spiritual, and philosophical context of our festivals and practices so as to rekindle the fading connection to our culture. and about this project. So this year I started my thesis project, which is around the same theme of cultural preservation. This project is an interactive VR installation that recreates the ambience of a holy site called Vrindavan. Vrindavan is a place of cultural and spiritual significance and an emblem of Vedic tradition. However, it is in dilapidation, both literally and figuratively, withering, as I pointed out earlier, to various encroachments and subversions.
Tourism.
Tourism. This installation, which will include flora, fauna, archaeological sites like ancient temples, deities, and native designs and architectures, intends to bring awareness of Vedic culture by bringing it to the fore. So this is my project's description. Next, please. So this is an early prototype of what the visual design is going to be like. It doesn't have the sound. Okay, it does have sound.
Yeah. Turn it up. How does that express the stuff that you so eloquently read off of your phone?
Sorry?
How does what I'm looking at right now express what you so eloquently read off your phone?
Okay. So this is an early prototype. I'm trying to figure out the visual design of the project. So it does not have all the elements that I'm going to include in the project yet.
Okay, I think you should explain your journey here.
Okay, so let me begin from the very beginning. So I was a monk for several years, and when I was living in the temple, I'd studied scriptures, and the stories and anecdotes that I found in the scripture made it inspired, and I found art as a medium to channel those stories and make scriptures accessible to more people. And so with that intention, I began to use illustration and animation to bring those stories to life. And this is a way of doing the same, of bringing those stories to more people. And that's the basic idea of my project.
So no smell,
It won't have smell.
but the sound, tell us about the sound that nobody could hear because nobody turned up the volume.
I could hear from here.
Yeah. Okay, nobody, turn up the volume.
Okay, tell us about the sound.
Okay, so I intend this to be a little bit more immersive experience than, say, just illustration.
What does that mean?
So illustration.
When you say immersive, that's like another one of those words that means everything and nothing.
Okay.
So you're an artist. This project is an expression of your past experience and intent. So what do you mean by immersive experience? Oh, I interrogate MFA students. That's my approach. He does. And it's because we have to learn to sharpen our language and presentation.
So immersive, I'm thinking of the soundscape that if you visit Vrindavan, there are certain sound scapes specific to that region or that culture, and I intend to incorporate that soundscape to bring my audience to Vrindavan.
So did you record this sound on your cell phone and that's what you're playing?
Say that again.
The sound that we hear, did you record it in the temple and that's what we hear?
No. This is I got it up.
Bird sounds.
person.
Yeah, bird sound.
It has to be
He
the
wants
white
temple.
bird sounds.
So, Sivash, if I may, I'll share with you the greatest lesson I learned from this gentleman here 5 years ago when I did my MFA. What he helped me find was my voice, what I wanted to say in art. Okay, it was the greatest lesson I learned in 5 years of the MFA. So thank you, Prof. Scott. And he's really saying that when he comes off with his criticisms. Okay.
Am I speaking French?
But I'm fascinated to that point of your voice. You were in a monastic lineage, in a temple.
Lineage.
Was it Hindu, Buddhist, some other?
Yes, Hindu. Hare
Oh,
Krishna.
Hindu.
Yes.
Any particular lineage? Variety
Yes,
of.
have you heard of Hare Krishna?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Were your parents monks?
No.
What ages were you when you had this
In Hindu you
monastic
can.
experience?
I joined the temple at 20.
Okay. And was it a 24-hour-a-day experience, or was it partial, come and, being at temple and then being back in the
other world?
No, so I was living in the temple,
Okay.
so it was a 24-hour.
Okay, cool, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm interested in that, yes, quite frankly.
So, this isn't a criticism to what you're doing, but you're trying to recreate something. And so let's just say theoretically some, multi-billionaire in America goes to this exact place, gets all the creatures, all the trees, rebuilds the temple, and just one-to-one recreates this exact thing. What are they going to miss out on versus being in the actual place that this originated from? What do you miss out on by recreating it? I'm sure there's a sense of being there, even VR or even rebuilding it stone by stone, one-to-one can't recreate. Am I wrong?
So you're asking, what does one miss out by...
How does virtual reality, is it better than real reality?
Not just virtual reality. I mean, like, even if you built it like one-to-one in America, where we don't have that culture, the people aren't the same. Are you missing something, right? So, you're highlighting an area, but I feel like there's more to it than just the area.
The magnetic field is different.
Right, yeah, I mean, everything is different, right? And so, is there something about being at that specific location, not just what's there, but where it is too?
Yes. So, Vrindavan, it is the birthplace of Hinduism.
Okay.
So it's emblem of Vedic culture.
Sure.
So, like probably Jerusalem is to Christianity. Obviously, if you are in that environment, it is surcharged with devotion, and the experiences that you'd have when you're there would be different than you're just experiencing on your VR headset.
So, Carl Jung, Western psychologist, when he greatly over-reduced the very complexity of Hinduism, spirituality, and cultures into what he called the 4 yogas of karmic yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana, and raha. That was one way of looking at that complexity. And bhakti yoga is a form of devotional yoga, is that correct?
Cool. I have a more basic question. What problem is what I'm looking at here solving in the context of your work?
It is. So my body of work is about showing my culture, and this is a way to show my culture.
No, we get away. We're back on the phone, okay? You give me the corporate speech. I want to know specifically, you have an example of your work here that we're looking at, okay? It's not saying the thing that you want to say in your thesis project more broadly.
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah.
I want to be really clear when I say that, yeah, okay? I'm asking from a different standpoint, because I want to have a different type of discussion. I want to know what problem this work is solving within the context of the broader thing that your idea or work that you intend to create. So we call this a dust track on the road. What is this solving?
What do you learn by doing this 2-minute thing?
Yeah.
Oh, what did I learn by doing this?
No, what did you learn, or what is it solving? How is this helping us get to where it is that you want to be?
How is this helping me?
You're presenting this to us as an example of your work.
Of the direction.
And the direction of your thesis. It's not where it's going to be. It's not the final mode or way in which your thesis project is going to be presented. So I want to stipulate that, okay? Get past that, so we won't talk about that. I want to talk about this, and I want to know what problems is this work that I'm encountering right now solving within the context of your practice.
Well, an example would be how I learned how to use the software.
Yeah. What are you going to get out of it?
Yeah, or I solved this technical problem, or I solved this thematic problem. I was able to work out this
why did
idea.
you use so much purple where you tried a lot of different colors and purple captured?
Okay.
But I don't want a facile sort of like formalistic breakdown of what it is that we're seeing. I want to know either something about the process that relates to the content that you intend to project in the broader sort of work. You're a third year MFA student. This is not, we're going to have an adult conversation right now. Okay, so what is it?
Okay, so I use Quill for this. Quill is a software specific to Oculus headset. So I'm using that for this project. And I'm learning Quill as well as I'm doing this.
Is that how the final, is that how your thesis project is going to be experienced with a headset? Is that how the audience is going to experience your final project, or be brought into the temple and into those sort of like experiences that you talk about, where it's going to be that kind of experience?
So they'll be wearing the headset, and that's how they're going to experience that. But as I'm learning, as I'm doing this project, I'm also learning Cross. And I'm also new to 3D design. I'm more, I was trained as a fine artist, so traditional painting. And so having building a world in 3D is a new area for me. And so
why are you even bothering doing that? Why is it important to do it in that way?
It's something that I wanted to try. Yes. Learning about Quill and then trying to design a world in 3D, and then colors. Yeah, it is. The 3D is so much different than 2D, so it does not translate one-to-one.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a hand raised here.
I'll ask. I was curious what program you use, because this looks like Dreams for PlayStation 4. I don't know if it's that.
This is Quill.
It's what?
Quill.
Quill?
Q-U-I-L-L.
Quill.
As in pen. As in pen.
Okay, very interesting. I do like the idea. You might have said this, and I may have misheard you, but would this be a VR experience, or would it be some sort of you're in an area and it has this projection of a 3D thing?
So you'll be wearing the headset and you'll be experiencing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the immersive experience.
Yeah.
But
there will be soundscapes as well.
Subhash,
yes.
I'm wondering, obviously there's this naturalistic experience representative of Vindravin in the temple. But wouldn't you say also there was an abstract experience through the Vedic scriptures themselves, or not? Am I throwing stuff on there? Because when I heard you talk about your personal experience in the temple as a monk, a lot of what I heard was you going to the Vedic scriptures and not just this beautiful naturalistic experience of nature, which very, very important, but is the mental space of the historic Vedic scriptures also important or not?
It is very important. And so that's so this will serve as an informative piece and as well as educational piece. So I'll have descriptions of the place and the pastimes that happen there and what it means to the practitioners, Vedic practitioners.
But also what it meant to you or not?
Yes, what it means.
When do you show the next thing?
Oh, so these are the references and places in Vrindavan.
Where is it?
In Vrindavan.
Why doesn't it feel like that?
Sorry?
Why doesn't it feel like that?
Why does not it
Why doesn't your work feel like that? Because when I look at that, that could be anywhere. And I'll let Clem say what he was going to say.
Well, you just stole the words from my mouth. I was gonna ask like, what would make it different from any other forest, but also what type of audience you're trying to like capture and what you want your audience to learn, like anything useful that will stick, that will resonate within the heart.
Yeah. Again, this is just a early version, a test version. So I understand the question, but there is more to it than just a test.
So then I would say, and I want you to understand that everything that I say is meant to be edifying and constructive. But I have to be frank, because you're a third-year MFA student. You should be in the full bloom of your creative superpower. And if the purpose today was to just show us a new idea that you were sort of working on, that's one thing. But if this is a presentation of your work, you should be able to present a cogent example of your work that reflects the full bloom of your creative superpower.
How many more slides are there?
The next slides are just references.
As Andrew said, the image you showed does not reflect anything about that natural landscape.
Yet.
Yet. Okay.
I think that's kind of like the big thing that we're missing out on is like the yet aspect, because obviously this is a work in progress, and it seems that this is like a new medium for our speaker, and I respect it greatly that there's an attempt to preserve culture, because so much of culture has been lost, and I respect that a lot, especially as someone who does try to preserve culture of my own that's been quickly lost to assimilation. That these things that are being said, there is some to. I think that the most important criticism, or I guess question, and was about the bird noises, because having like specific bird noises or whatever noises from that area is really important, because I think my own examples of I had experiences because my grandparents owned land like in a rural area where like bird noises are just something that sticks with you. Like to this day, I hear a red-winged blackbird, I'll know specifically what it is. And a lot of people today, like they don't have those experiences or things to stick with them. I mean, most kids today, they don't even know.
Or running water, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Why is there no running water in the sound?
But, obviously it's a work in progress, but I think that was important, just to have like the accuracy of like to really translate your vision, what you experience, in the fall, right? And give it to the viewer, whoever partakes in the experience.
So I'm gonna kind of try to bounce off of what you were saying, Andrew, but in a bit of a different way. So, you were asking what is this supposed to, like, what's the point, or what is it trying to say? So for my experience, so for me, I have a shamefully low understanding of Hinduism, right? I've never been to this area. When your project is finished, not in this current state, what do you want me to come away with after I do it, right? As somebody who just doesn't have any clue, right? Because I feel like for someone like you, this all has a huge amount of meaning. For me, it doesn't, right? It just, maybe it should.
Pretty pictures.
Exactly, yeah. It's beautiful, but, like these cultural meanings. So what would you want me to come away with? Like one or many things, whatever you want.
So because I'll have, of course, this is again work in progress, but I'll have educational motives as well.
Okay.
And so the pretty pictures and all the set decoration are just entice you to come to the project. But I want my audience to come out of the room with a little bit or some idea of Hinduism.
Okay. So
of what?
Of Hinduism, some idea.
I just had a
last
stupid
question,
idea.
last thoughts.
Why don't you show what the temple looks like now and what it looked like 1,000 years ago? I'm sure there are renditions of it that exist, and then you could do time travel. No, I mean, there must be renditions of this place by
Did it
paintings or-
exist 1,000 years ago?
Yeah.
It did, okay.
Go ahead, jump in.
You said that you were a monk and that you lived in like some sort of temple, right? Is there anything that you were taught or something specifically that like it would be worth for us to know that you can include on the project?
Well, the most important thing is to know that you're not the body, but the soul.
Maybe that can be a part of the project.
I agree. And I think what everybody's trying to say is that you can have all the didactic information in the world, right? But then, okay, let's make the didactic information the artwork.
all right, I'm gonna do this
Because-
one. You define didactic.
Oh, like the written stuff, the descriptive stuff,
Okay.
the image, the entourage,
Okay.
we'll call it. But ultimately, the art has to stand on its own. And the artistic experience has to stand on its own and get us to that place. Take us to that place that you say that you want us to be. And so, as you move forward, I would encourage you to think about how you use the artwork to get you to that place. And just sprinkling technology onto the intent is not going to be enough.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left or something. I recommend that you give this presentation to Jacob Hunwick. So he's working using design methods to create a sense of place in this room. How do you know where you are right now? If you leave this room, what will you remember about it?
That's it. Thank you so much for.